So first things first, really briefly, we are Pro Academic. Anya and I run a small consultancy, guidance and support company, supporting students to make university applications, and also working heavily in producing and providing super curricular links, opportunities and activities. Something like this, where you get to understand a little bit more about universities, what they're looking for, and how to present yourself as someone who's knowledgeable and knows what they're doing. Briefly from me, I've got 31 years of teaching experience, mainly working with sixth formers, so working on university applications is my thing and has been for far too long, probably. But that means that I've got a lot of experience and a lot of kind of understanding of the process and how it goes.
Yeah.
Anya, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so I'll introduce myself as well. So my name is Anya. I work with Nicola. We run Pro Academic together. I'm originally from Russia, and I work for about 10 years in different private schools, supporting international students with their university applications. We supported over thousands of different applications, and including early applicant ones. And we are both, Nicola and I, really passionate about supporting students, giving them best opportunities, the best chances at succeeding with the university applications.
Okay, so I guess it's time to move on to the main event, really, isn't it? Annie, do you want to start, or do you want me to?
Yeah, so thank you so much for agreeing to come and talk to us. It's a pleasure to have you today, and I'm sure it'll be, for everyone, it will be really interesting to learn about your career. It's very special. So let's start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So hello everyone, my name's Ellen Hurst. I'm from Newcastle. I originally went to school around this area, and then I ended up going to Queen Ethelburgers in York, which is where I met Nicola, and she was my head of year at the time. And we've sort of stayed in touch ever since. I was super into sport when I was into college, and sort of before college I was really, really sporty, and initially I was thinking about doing going into a career in sport, and then I sort of realized that I didn't really want to blend my active life with my work life. I wanted something different, and I didn't know what it was, didn't have a clue. And initially I didn't want to go to university. I just wanted to go straight into a job after college and be paid for what I was doing. But my mum and dad, as wise as they are, had told me that I should really go and have a look at university, just to, you know, make sure that I hadn't missed anything, and that I was actually choosing my right path. So I'd gone and had a look at different universities, what sort of courses they offered, and I'd seen the paramedic practice one at Teesside. So I went and had a look, and I realised, yeah, that's definitely for me. I can totally see myself doing that in the future. So I had chosen to do BTEC Business, BTEC Sport and A-Level Biology for A-Level and during college, which meant that I could keep the sport aspect of my life going, meant that I could have like a general knowledge of business if I ever needed to sort of go into that in the future. If I wanted to expand anything, I also had that sort of basic knowledge there. And I always loved biology, and to obviously be a paramedic, you need to, you know what the human body is and what it does, and how everything works. So that's why I chose biology, and I always loved biology, and I always quite liked first aid and helping people. So that sort of helped me to choose what path I wanted to go down. I wanted a job where I wasn't just sitting at a desk all day. I wanted something that included, being with people, helping people, talking to people. And I wanted something that I wasn't going to get bored at. And this is definitely a job that you do not get bored with. So I think I chose quite well.
Can I jump in? Because I've got a question that kind of links to that.
Yeah.
So You said paramedic practice. They're either paramedic practice or paramedic sciences. Tell us a little bit about the degree, and then maybe a little bit about what paramedics do.
Yeah, so the degree that I did, I went to Teesside University, and to be a paramedic at the minute, you need a degree to do it. There is currently internal courses, but I'm not entirely sure what that is. I think they're 2 years, but you don't actually get the degree with it. So then you have to do like the upkeep of that extra bit, really. So I went to Teesside Uni, I did 3 years. Each year consisted of some theory, so in the classroom, and in the sort of the labs, practicing, doing, you know, practical assessments, of what we call OSCEs, which is the examination of doing certain practical things. And then you had the other aspect of it where you went into practice, so you did placements, so you did hospital placements for 5 weeks, and you did 10 weeks, and you did on the ambulance for 10 weeks as well. So you got a good amount of placement, and that was every year. So depending on how much work there was in the year, depending on how much sort of, so the first year there was a lot of theory and a little bit of placement. Second year was less theory, more placement, and the third year was less theory again and even more placement. So it not only helps you get the cat's jumping up, theory aspect of it all, but you also get the placement side of it all as well. So so you're able to learn the knowledge, and then you're able to go out, practice what you've learned, practice the skills you've learned, and also get to see what actually the job includes, and what sort of people you'd be working with, and how the whole NHS, and how, well, in my case, North East Ambulance Service, how they all work, and what sort of pathways there are within that business. That's it, really.
It seems like, to start with, you were not quite sure what you wanted to do. Why did you then choose to become a paramedic?
I get this question quite a lot. Why do you want to be a paramedic? It's an odd one. So I was always interested in biology. I was interested in first aid. I was interested in helping people, minor injuries, minor illnesses. I was always quite interested in that. And in my mind, the only sort of jobs that were going were either doctors or nurses. And I knew I didn't want to be a nurse. I knew fine well I did not want to be a nurse. And I didn't think I'd be able to become a doctor, because you know, self-confidence out the window. So I didn't think I'd be able to become a doctor. So in my mind, that was not an option either. And I think quite a lot of people out there don't realise the amount of jobs that there actually are in the NHS, and within medicine, that people can actually go into, that aren't advertised all the time. You get loads of advertisements on the telly about nursing, tons about nursing, but there's none about paramedics. There's none about sort of district nurses. They're completely different aspect to nursing as well. ECAs, which is an assistant to the paramedic, they're not talked about. There's other roles inside the hospital that are not necessarily easy, but they're easier oh, he's just sitting here, bless him. He just wants to be a part of it. Within the hospital that actually are easier to get there, rather than people thinking they have to become a doctor to be involved in healthcare, and it's just not the case. So I did some digging, and I sounds dead cheesy, but I was always a lover of casualty when I was young, and I thought, you know what, that looks quite fun, that. So I had a look online, looked into what was sort of what was needed to be in that role, and I thought, yeah, actually, you know what, I can do that. And with paramedics as well, there's a lot there's a lot of sort of progression in the job. So if you are a paramedic, you can go on to do your masters, you can go on to do your degree. And some people, you know, they become advanced practitioners, they become advanced paramedics, they become emergency care practitioners, they become doctors. There's consultant paramedics out there. So, you know, it's not be a paramedic end all, you know, end of, that's it. There's quite a lot of different pathways you can then move on to, because I know me, and I know I won't be able to stay in the same job for all my life. That's not how I am. It's not what I want. You know, I wanted something where I could progress, and I wanted something that I could look forward to motivate me to learn more, to do more, and to see where I can actually go in the job. I think you find quite a lot of jobs, especially nursing. Some people think, oh, you know, you nurse people for the rest of your life, but you know, there's progression in nursing as well. But people think that you get into a job and you're stuck there forever, but it's just, that's not the case. So yeah, I wanted, long story short, I wanted a job where I could be active. I didn't have to be at a desk all day. I could meet new people every day. I could form, you know, new friendships every day. And I wanted something that was challenging and sort of got me adrenaline going, because I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. So I needed that sort of aspect of my life as well.
Okay, I'm going to take you back rather than you looking forwards.
Yeah.
To your subject choices, and not so much what you did, because we know that you've already said you did your business, your sport, and your biology. Yeah. And there's a real obvious link between biology and paramedic science.
Yeah.
Bit more tenuous with the other two. How do you think those two subjects helped you? And really importantly, because I guess it's a little bit of an elephant in the room, when you were looking for universities, did you find those BTECs to be welcomed, you know, kind of like opening doors, or was that problematic?
So where do we start with this one?
Start with the subjects, I guess.
I was on shift yesterday, so my mind's still fried. So the subjects I did, so as I've said, A-level biology, BTEC business, BTEC sport. So the business and the sport, because I've got an extensive background within sport as well anyway, I found that doing BTEC sport, it helped with my anatomy and physiology quite a lot, which then also fed into the biology bit. And even though biology, you do anatomy and physiology, so how the body works, the pathophysiology, so what happens when it goes wrong, when things aren't, you know, normal. I found that the sport aspect of it covered more realistic sort of ideas. So when people get injuries, when people get minor illnesses in sport, and what to do and how you can overcome it, and diet, general well-being as well, like covering mental health and things like that. Whereas the biology was very much sort of fact and not necessarily feeding into everyday scenarios. So I think the BTEC sport helped in that way. And the BTEC business, I didn't do BTEC for business or business in general for GCSE, so that was a new subject for me. But initially I was thinking about start my own physiotherapy business, something like that. So that's what sort of drove me to do the business side. But I think that's also helped in my job, because it generally helps in any job if you can sort of understand how business works. Because, you know, if it sounds daft, but if you don't know how much you're getting paid each month, you don't know what your sort of expenses are, what's coming in, what's going out. You know, it's helped me with general life and general sort of keeping myself afloat. And I think it's just helpful information for anyone to have. It's not necessarily specific to business and big businesses like, you know, Apple or Tesco's or you know, whatever. It helps you with the little things in life, and it helps you to sort of understand your current situation, and then where you're going to go in the future and how you're going to get there logistically and money wise, and you know, that's helped me in that sort of respect. In regards to BTECs and university, I found they were welcomed with open arms. They obviously they adapted what point system they used at the time, so different UCAS points and things. So I never really personally had an issue with BTECs. For me, before I actually did BTECs, I was thinking, oh, are they, you know, are they the sort of the lesser option? Am I, you know, I'm not being daft, but am I dumbing myself down? You know, and that's the way I thought about it. And then luckily I had a family friend that he's a lecturer at college at Gateshead, and he explained it all to me, and after that I was like, wow, this just makes more sense, because I'm not an exam person. I am so much better at coursework, doing assignments. So for me, BTECs were perfect, and I thoroughly enjoyed doing my BTECs. And I'm not an academic person at all, like I say, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And yes, there was a lot of work, but I enjoyed doing that than I did being in a biology exam, because that's just the way my mind works.
It's interesting to chip in, you know, often as an outsider, you don't see the relationship, and you would think, BTEC sport, BTEC business biology, right, yeah, I get how one of them links, but I'm not sure how the other two do. But you've just really eloquently linked your BTEC sport to your paramedic science, possibly more than your biology did. And I think if you can do that in your personal statement, you're showing what you've learned from that subject that's going to benefit them. And in the end, it's about you being a better candidate than someone else. I think it doesn't that just demonstrate that actually it's not necessarily about course titles, it's about what lies underneath and how you can sell that and sell yourself within your personal statement. That was really interesting how you kind of went through this list of things that practically were so much more useful, and that perhaps the A-level biology that we all think they all need, and they do, is that much more theoretical and perhaps not quite so, you know, directly relevant.
I mean, there was times in my anatomy physiology lessons at university where, and it sounds like I'm, you know, up myself really, but I knew more than most people, because my A-level biology went into so much detail that actually I really didn't need. So I had to sort of step myself down a bit and bring myself back and think, well, I know how all of this works, but now I've got to then put it in with an actual realistic situation. So someone who's ill with chest pain, and they've got different symptoms, and they've taken this medication or they haven't taken this medication, and you've got to sort of link up all the dots, and it's a dot exercise. It's trying to find one that links to the other, which then links to the other, which then links to something else, and then it brings you out at what the issue is and how you fix it. And definitely, you know, the A-level biology gave me a really good base of understanding the theory side of it, but in relation to actually being in an everyday situation, the BTEC sport definitely helped me a little bit more.
Tell us really quickly about that choice of university. I know that you stayed at home, didn't you? Was that primary choice number one? Did you look at other universities, and what did you look for in the course?
So I am a home bird, so I wanted to be close to home at the time. It wasn't the be all and end all. It was just my sort of preference at the time. I applied for Teesside, Oxford Brookes, Surrey, Bournemouth and Portsmouth. I already knew I didn't want Portsmouth, so that was sort of out the window. Bournemouth I got rejected from because they wanted more older applicants, and they wanted people that had been in trusts and more healthcare professions before. I got an offer from Surrey, got an offer from Oxford Brookes, and offer from Teesside. Oxford Brookes and Teesside were pretty much the same on offers. I think Oxford Brookes wanted a couple of points less, so that wasn't anything extortionate. And Surrey, they wanted a a B in biology, which I was never going to get. So that was out. That was out the window as well.
I remember that conversation
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Yeah, it would have been lovely, but no, that was gone. So I was happy with either one of those, and I just thought I'd be wasting so much money going to Oxford Brookes. Yes, you know, I'd move out, I'd have a proper student life, but at the time I've never been the sort of person to want the student life. It all depends on what you want. So there's nothing wrong with wanting a student life at the time. There's nothing wrong with wanting to go out every night and, you know, have the actual university lifestyle that lots of people have. There is nothing wrong with that. It just depends on what you want. And I just wasn't the person that wanted that. I wanted to go to university, learn what I needed to learn. I wanted to come home and chill, not have to wash dirty dishes, have my mum to do that. Didn't, you know, at the time, this just wasn't a priority to move out. And I just wanted to save money as well. I didn't see the point in going and moving down south when there was a uni close to home that wanted me. And so I went to Teesside, and that was my sort of decision for it. And I'm happy I did. You know, that sometimes I wish I hadn't, but you know, I think it was a good decision at the time. And as to what I look for in a course as well, I wanted something that had a decent amount of theory, but also had a lot of practice in it. And I think looking at Teesside definitely had the course structure that suited me best. That had a lot of placement time compared to, I mean, Oxford Brookes was quite similar as well, but the others, they had more theory based in the first year especially. And I still remember my first day vividly. I'd never been on an ambulance before. I'd never been on an ambulance with lights and sirens. I'd never just stepped into someone's house to see if they were all right. Like, never done anything like that. So I was at uni for, I think it was about 4 or 6 weeks, and then we were out on placement, so it was very, very quick. And I'd never done any personal care for anyone, so it really threw me in at the deep end, and it was the best thing for me. 100%. You can't, this sort of profession is not something you can ease into. In some ways you can, but you know, if you have to wipe someone's bum because they've accidentally had an accident, you know, that you can't ease yourself into it. You just have to get on with it, and that's what I did. My first placement was a community hospital, and it was all personal care needs and physiotherapy needs. So for me, I just had to do it. I couldn't not do it. I couldn't complain about it. That's just what had to be done, and that's what I did. And I think if you've got to be that sort of person that just gets on with things. You can't be squeamish. You know, yes, we all dislike certain things. I really, really don't like loose hair, and don't ask me why. You know, I can deal with vomit, I can deal with phlegm, I can deal with anything else, but loose hair, oh, no, senses, no, even just thinking about it's minging. Honestly, bizarre, right?
Of all the things you could dislike, loose hair.
Of all the things, loose hair, yeah. Oh, minging, okay. Absolutely disgusting. So, you know, everyone has their likes and dislikes, but you have to be the person that, you know, is greeted with the situation. You just got to get on with it. Can't be tiptoeing around it, or, you know, wimping out of it, because at the end of the day, you were caring for someone. No matter what situation you were in, you are caring for someone, and someone needs your help, so you can't be picky. Just got to get on with it.
Prior to starting university, did you do any work experience?
Yes. At college, I did 2 weeks work experience in a school. So I was working with young children at the time. So that's really good experience. Generally, I would say if you are looking to go into a role within care or within like the NHS or anything, work experience that's really good is anything with customer service, so dealing with people, anything with older people, so working in a care home, or just volunteering in a care home, helping people eat, helping people get dressed on a morning, helping people wash, basic things. Things as well like nurseries. My mum and dad owned a couple of children's nurseries, so I had already had quite a lot of experience with children, even just from growing up. I was always in the baby unit helping out, so I was always, all right with kids at that point, and I wasn't too nervous around them, and I had a good sort of base on how to communicate with children and people that were younger than us. I also did placement in a funeral directors, so I followed.
You mentioned this.
Yeah, so I followed an embalmer around for a week, and honestly, one of the best weeks of my life. And I think one of my progressions in life is I would love to be an embalmer. That's just one of the things. That's just me. I just find something so beautiful in it, and it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it was very, very interesting, and it actually helped us get used to dead bodies, because I'd never seen a dead body in real life. And on my first day, we went into the chapel of rest, and there was, I think it was six people laid to rest in there, in different rooms, and one of them was a baby. I think it was 4 months old, so that was a shock. There was quite a lot of old people in there as well, but I saw the whole embalming process. I saw, after a hanging, I saw a gentleman who had killed himself. I'd seen quite a lot of old people and people who had cancer and died, and I think that was really important to me, because I didn't want to go out on placement and be terrified or be startled at seeing a dead body, because that I just didn't want that at all. So I think, like I say, anything to do with kids, old people, customer service, or dealing with anyone that literally could just be on the tills at Sainsbury's, at least you're talking to people, or you customer service in the shop. And if you can, I know it's a push, but anything, if you can get to see anything with dead bodies, honestly, it helps a great deal. It really does. And it also helps you to see the side of, after we've picked up someone who's dead, or after we've so say we had a cardiac arrest and they've died, and we've left them at the house with the family. The funeral directors have come and picked them up. It helps you see that aspect of it as well, because not many people do. So when once we're done with someone, or they've died and they've passed away, we've left them to rest at the house. Not many people see what happens after that. So actually being able to be on the other side of it and see what they do, and be able to tell them what we do, was quite beneficial in general.
I guess that allows you to be able to communicate that to the family that are there as well, of what will happen next. That makes you so much more valuable, because you can reassure and advise and guide. It's interesting that almost everything you didn't have a direct relationship with being a paramedic, but the skills can be linked and kind of turned towards it.
At the end of the day, being a paramedic, it's all about common sense, and it's all about personal skills, and I would say 80% of it is personal skills. You've got to be able to talk to people, you've got to be able to communicate with people effectively, no matter what age, no matter whether they can hear you or not, whether they're blind, if they've got any disabilities, if they're annoying, if they're awful people, you've got to be able to communicate with people, and you've got to be able to adapt your communication. And I think that's what's really effective is in getting work experience with children, with older people in customer service, because you're dealing with loads of people all the time, or loads of different types of people. You're able to show that you are able to adapt your communication styles to suit that person, and that's really important, because at the end of the day, it's a person, and he or she, they need to understand what's going on and why it's happening, and what you're going to do about it, and what the plan is going forward.
Wow, this sounds really interesting. You touch on your university course. What did you find to be most challenging aspect of your studying, and the parts that you enjoyed the most?
So I would say the parts I enjoyed the most were being on placement. You can learn as much as you want theory-wise, But until you put it into practice and until you see it in real life, you don't really know anything about it. Unless you've seen someone have a heart attack, yes, you can understand what to do and deal with it, but unless you've seen it and unless you've actually, you know, been involved in the treatment with that person, I don't think you really fully understand and get what that person's going through. Likewise with cardiac arrest, so when people have died, and you need to get them back, you need to do CPR. Unless you've been in that situation, even just watched it, I don't think if people fully understand or can sort of grasp it until you get involved. And that was the same as me. I was always quite nervous about getting jobs, and I still am. You know, there's jobs I haven't done, touch wood, and that, you know, you do get nervous, but you know what you're doing. But you do get nervous because it's an experience, and that's the key thing to this job. You can know everything in the universe, but unless, you know, most things come with experience. Most things you don't learn in the classroom. You don't learn how to talk to people. You don't learn how to deal with mental health, really. We got a day or a couple of days on mental health, so we didn't really get a great deal on that. In some ways, it is sort of learning on the job, because you're getting all this theory blown at you, but really you've got to learn as you go, and you've got to take good things from other paramedics and other people on the job. You've got to be able to pick through, say you work with someone, you think, oh, I like what they do there, I'll take that, I'll use that later. And then you go to someone else and you think, oh, actually they do that a different way. Oh, I think I'll take that. And every paramedic is different. Everyone does things different ways. Doesn't mean they're wrong. They've just taken, you know, different tips from other people and identified what works best with some people. Sorry, I keep going off on loads of tangents. I would say that the most challenging thing at uni probably was so the challenging thing for me at uni is because I'm not very good at exams, so practical exams were sort of quite difficult to wrap my head around at first. So it's what we call OSCEs. So you know, having to do CPR in front of an invigilator, getting filmed, it was at the time I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my God. And I'd done weeks and weeks and weeks of practice, but then having to do it in front of my lecturer with a video camera right there, explain what I was doing. I was like, oh my God, this is intense. I don't think I can do this. But you get used to it as you go on. I still don't like doing them now. No one likes them because it's, you know, it's very intense. But I think that was probably the hardest thing because I'd never done it before. So that was the hardest thing for me, really. Yeah.
Performance anxiety.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Yes.
No doubt, and interesting that no doubt you could relate that to sports performance anxiety as well, and that kind of similar feeling of nerves, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
You touched briefly early on about career prospects and about when you qualify as a paramedic, that's not it. You know, you don't become a paramedic and that's it, full stop. Yeah. Talk to us about what a potential pathway might be, maybe your pathway, what you're hoping to achieve within the industry.
Yeah, so there are different pathways. So basically in the ambulance service, if you're looking at like the practical jobs, so you've got PTS, which is patient transport service. So all you really need to do for that, I think there's a few weeks course on like first aid and things like that, and obviously you need your C1 driving license to do that. They don't do lights and sirens, they don't do A&E driving. And then you go up the ladder and you've got ECAs, which is emergency care assistants. Sorry, my nose is blocked. Emergency care assistants, or they've changed the name now to clinical care assistants, and they are people who assist paramedics. in the olden days, you used to have technicians, which used to be between the assistants and the paramedics, but they've got rid of those now. So there's still few that are on the roads nowadays, but they're not employing any more technicians nowadays. And then you've got paramedics, and then after that, so you can either be an ambulance paramedic, which is on the van, or you can be on a RRV, which is a rapid response vehicle, which you'll probably see flying around the streets in a lovely BMW, and flying around all over the place. They are the same pay wage, so they aren't any different paramedics. They're just on a different vehicle, if you get me. And the RRVs, they don't have assistants, so it's just them, that paramedic on their own. And then when they need backup, they then call for another crew, and the crew can then take the patient to hospital. It's all just due to timings and getting to that patient as quickly as possible. Then moving up the ladder, you've got you can have community paramedics, so they can prescribe like antibiotics. So they tend to go out to the older generation. You tend to find those in Weardale, sort of Bishop Auckland, any sort of rural locations really. And they go out to people and they sort of sort out all, they can prescribe, you know, things for, say, like urine infections, chest infections, things like that. And then you've also got advanced paramedics. So they are people who have done their masters. They may have done like the prescribing course, so again, prescribing antibiotics, prescribing certain drugs that they can give to people in order to leave that person at home. You tend to find they can sort of be on the rapid cars as well, so they get to go to more serious jobs, and they don't have an assistant with them either, but you can also find them on ambulances as well. Then if you can then do further skills to become a spec paramedic. And at the minute, there's a bit of a reshuffling going on at the minute. So I don't think the specs are going to be around for much longer, but we'll see. But a spec paramedic basically has a few extra skills than a paramedic. And they tend to go to a lot of cardiac arrests and what we call category 1 calls. So the either fittings or cardiac arrests. I think they might tend to come to hypos as well. Some of them might come to traumas because you get spec trauma paramedics as well. They have just certain specialized skills that they have in the car. So that the cardiac ones, they have ultrasound, they have certain other drugs, so they have midazolam, they have different volumes of adrenaline that they can give as well. They have a Lucas, which is one of the, I don't know whether you've seen it on the telly, it's a stand like that with a frame, and basically it pumps up and down on the chest like that, so we don't have to do the compressions. So they carry other gear, other drugs, and they're there to assist you on those jobs. You then sort of split into HART, which is Hazard Area Response Team. And then you've got HEMS, which is basically air ambulance. And HEMS on a night tend to be on a car, or if the weather's bad and the helicopter can't fly, they tend to be on a car. If not, they'll be up in the sky. And you've got HART as well, so the Hazard Area Response Team. And they go to jobs which is like in the middle of a forest, or someone's hanging off a cliff, or someone's in a ditch somewhere, or there's a rolled over car, or like RTCs. If it's a really bad trauma in a really awkward, weird place, they tend to go to that. So HART tend to need skills more like outdoor skills, so rope handling. They tend to sort of cross paths with the fire service. So rope skills, they tend to go to like fires, building issues as well. If you have any serious major events, major incidents, such as terror attacks or like bombings, anything that's considered a major incident, you'll find that HART are there, fire service. HEMS, depending on how many people are injured and where it is, HEMS might stay back before they get involved. It'll usually be heart. Oh, pardon me. It'll usually be heart, and they'll sort of link in with the fire service in order to help get those people out. All of them are paramedics, if not advanced, if not consultants. So there's a lot of people in there as well. HEMS, you find that there's a doctor and a paramedic on the helicopter most of the time, so it'll be one doctor, one paramedic. I think it's very rarely you'll find two doctors on. Normally they try and put a paramedic and a doctor on together. And you can be, I think, in order to sort of get into those two, they're the main sort of pathways at the minute that people are aiming to go to. So if you're interested in trauma and quite seriously unwell people, you tend to go to HEMS. If you're interested in outdoor things, more enclosed spaces, fires, sort of the wacky jobs, you tend to go to heart. So it just depends on what you want to do, and then going up from there, people tend to find quite a lot of people just become a consultant, really. Just become. They'll tend to work towards being a consultant paramedic or something, to do their doctorate. Or their masters in emergency medicine or something like that, and quite a lot of the consultant paramedics, they'll either take up a managerial role. So I think our consultant paramedic, one of them, he does all like the drug maintenance and like drug orders in the business. So all our drug orders, they like sort of go to him, and he authorizes them all. Other consultant paramedics, they work in A&E. There's one that's on air ambulance on the telly. Is it helicopter ER or something? I don't know. Don't watch them. He works in RVI and in Newcastle, and he sort of runs the pre-alerts in. So in resource, he sort of runs all that. So he's in charge of everyone. So that includes like orthopedic surgeons, radiographers, everyone that's sort of around in resource. He organizes all of that. So there's a lot to think about. There's also emergency care practitioners. So they do their masters. They do certain skills as well. They do the main skills is clinical skills, minor illness and minor injuries. So you'll find that emergency care practitioners, they are the same as a nurse practitioner. So you'll find them either in a GP surgery or minor injury units, or urgent cares as well, because they're really good at triaging people, sorting them out for x-rays, and sort of giving them a treatment plan, giving them antibiotics, giving them this, giving them that, putting casts on people, and then send them on their way with a care plan ready for them. So I could probably go on for a bit longer, but there's, down here you've got us paramedics, and then there's sort of like a tree that goes off, and you can sort of, if you want to do your masters in something super wacky, then that's cool, because then it'll give you something a bit different towards what everyone else, because quite a lot of people do the masters in emergency medicine, and it's like, well, where's that going to get you? Because what makes you different to anyone else that does it? So you'll find some people do it in trauma, some people do it for certain drugs, or some people will do it for minor major injuries, minor major illnesses. It just depends on what you're interested in, really. Quite a lot. Some people like trauma, some people like illnesses, some people like minor injuries, some people, it just depends on what you want and what you want to do, really.
It's interesting that it starts off as a very distinctly different role, but as you move up that tree, it tends to appear to morph back into more of what other people might see as traditional medicine. There's a very, very big overlap at that point. And I was really surprised when you said that sometimes a paramedic, and this is not disrespectful to paramedics, but I think this is the way people perceive it, paramedic being in charge of a whole group of consultants and hospital-based medical staff might come as a surprise to some, because they don't really see how all of that links together. But there's definitely a lot of kind of multi-agency or multidisciplinary work going on.
Oh yeah.
And an opportunity to make it quite high up that tree.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you know, when I was at uni, I had people come to me and say, "Oh, are you training to be an ambulance driver?" I'm like, no, I'm not. Training to be a paramedic. The same as people going, "Oh, are you a nurse?" No, I'm a paramedic. Very, very different. Very, very different. And I think quite a lot of people think, you just drive around in big yellow vans. I mean, yes, we do, and it's fun, and it's what we get paid for. But at the end of the day, we are actually a trained clinician, and we can give you drugs, we can do certain procedures, and give us a little bit more sort of respect. Really. We're not a dog's body.
I think over time perhaps the roles changed significantly.
Yeah.
And it's gone from being somebody who just picked you up and delivered you to the people who could, to actually, as a society, we've realised that the quicker you do something, the better the outcome chances are. And so, that job's down to you now. So it's been elevated in status. I just think maybe public perception needs to catch up a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
You never know. You might get
there. Wishful thinking, I think.
Just wanted to remind everyone who is listening that they can ask questions. So if you think of any questions, do put them in the chat. It would be really nice to also hear from you all. Ellen, what do you think the skills that are required by paramedic? I know you mentioned communication skills, and I think that's probably is one of the key ones. Is there anything else that you think is important people need to develop who want to go into this profession?
Yeah, so I think you're totally right. Communication is the big one, really is. If like I say, if you can't talk to people, then you're sort of losing at life because it's being able to talk to people, being able to understand what's going on with them, and what's happened to them, how to help them, what's best for them, and being able to communicate that to your team members as well, other medical staff. It's not just being a nice person either. You've got to be caring, and you've got to be empathetic. You've got to be able to have that compassion towards people. You've got to be able to have that actual caring aspect of you. But you've also got to be really resilient. You've got to have that sort of backbone in you, and it took me a while to get it. I was always quite feisty, and I was always quite strong, but going into this job, it's really made us hard as nails. I have no, it takes, and again that comes with experience, really. Until you've had a few people that have really messed you around, and a few patients that have really messed you around, let's say. Only then do you realize, actually, you know what? No, you're not doing this. You're not going to do this on my van. You're not going to misbehave. Otherwise, I'm going to go. And I think, you've got to have that sort of resilience in you as well. I would say you've got to have a strong stomach at times. There's some smells out there that you would never think existed, but they are there. There's some houses out there that you would never think exist, but oh, by God, are they there? Things you'd step in sometimes that you would never think you would step in, you've stepped in them. Kneeling in people's urine, you've got to have that strong stomach. And I think, again, you do harden over time as well. Once you've seen a few different jobs and a few different people in different situations, you do harden to it, and you tend to find that nothing really surprises you anymore, and then the next job really surprises you. But yeah, I would say, I think quite a lot of people need common sense. The job is mainly common sense. So if you've got to sort of be able to look at the bigger picture as well, and that's what I mean by common sense. You've got to be able to see what's going on, and sort of think, well, and not sort of looking too much into it in a medical aspect, because at the end of the day, you're in a metal box on a road. All you can really do is, do a certain, either medical procedure or give a certain amount of drugs, and then at the end of the day they're going to have to go to hospital anyway. So you can only do so much in that time frame. You can only do so much in your little yellow box. So you've got to just sort of go with it and realize what you're actually there for, and seeing the bigger picture in the overall aspect of the situation. So not delving too deep into things. You've got to be able to have that sort of wall to stop you, and think, actually, you know what, yes, this might be something going on, but common sense, let's just roll with this, let's do that, let's just get them in. And I think you come across some people who enjoy having the power over people, and I think this should really be talked about a little bit more, really. Is quite a lot of people think that in a medical profession they get to have the power over people, and it drives me insane sometimes. You find some doctors really aren't nice, you find nurses aren't nice sometimes, you find, some people just aren't nice, and that's where your backbone comes in. You've got to be strong, you've got to be able to say, no, I did this for a reason, that's my judgment, I did this, and I'm happy I've done this, and if people think you're wrong, then that's fine, you just agree to disagree, unless obviously you've killed someone, then obviously you can't agree to disagree, you've really done something wrong there. But so you've got to have common sense, good communication skills, a good backbone, and some resilience. Some people are a little bit squeamish to certain things, like I said before, but it's sort of being able to put that aside and just focus on what the actual situation is, and not being, sort of held back by that. And I would say general maturity as well, and I think just respect for people, being able to put yourself in that person's shoes. Would you like it if you'd gone to go to the toilet and you hadn't got there in time, and you've made an accident on the floor? Would you like that? Would you like it if someone came and cleaned you up and got you ready and did this, did that? You probably wouldn't. So you've got to be able to put yourself in that person's shoes and think, well, what does this person need, and how am I going to do this to make sure that they're comfortable and their dignity is kept throughout?
Can I ask you?
Yeah, go for it.
So somebody, having listened to this tonight, or perhaps have already made the decision and they're going to make an application for Paramedic Science, could you maybe give them 5 things that they need to know or do to give them the best chance of success in that application?
Yeah.
And the things that are kind of like the golden tickets.
Yeah. So, as I said before, I think getting as much work experience as possible in different situations. You'll tend to find if you go into a certain place. So if you go into a funeral director's, for an example, it helps to know people. It helps to know certain people, and it's not what you know, it's who you know, and that's just the way life is. But if you go into certain businesses, certain places, and you go, look, I'm so and so, I want to be a paramedic. I'm going to be trained to be a paramedic. I need some of this work experience. Are you able to supply this? Obviously free of charge, doesn't matter, are you able to supply this? If not, who is? So if that funeral director isn't able to supply you with work experience, can they point you in a direction that someone that can? Doing like online courses as well. So if you're interested in in certain aspects of it, so mental health, go on the Open University. The Open University has so many free courses in health and social care and nursing, and that sort of aspect to it. So do a few of them, because it's like extra brownie points. It's like if you say, look, I've done a I've done a course in this, it's like, oh, you know, that person's shown initiative and they're interested in that. Yes, you know, it's a free course in the Open University, but at least you're doing something, you know, that someone else probably won't have done that. So definitely do that. I would say with personal statement wise, you need to open your personal statements with a very, very catchy line. Don't be one of these people who says, oh, I've wanted to be a paramedic all my life. No, you haven't. You really haven't. You're not fooling anyone, love. You really haven't. There was a day in your life that you chose to become that. And find that day and understand why you want to be it, why you want to do this role. And this doesn't just apply to paramedics, this applies to everything. So whether you want to be an artist, whether you want to be a nurse, whether you want to be a paramedic, whether you want to be the coolest guitarist in the band, you know, that's what I want to be. But, you know, if you want to do whatever you want, you've got to have something that just sticks out to people. Because if you be one of these people that says, I've wanted to do this all my life, you know, people, they're going to take one look at that first line and they're going to go, nah, don't want that one. They don't have a clue what they're on about. If you have a catchy line at the beginning, and something that's sort of out the blue, and sometimes it's got nothing to do with paramedics. I think my personal statement first line was about my netball, and when I got my England cap in netball, and you know, it's got nothing to do with paramedics, but it shows that I'm able to work in a team, in a netball team. It shows I'm determined because I've got an England cap. You know, just that one sentence shows you so many different things, and it can explain so many different things to people. And they are looking through so many personal statements a day. If they get bored, they're just not going to look at yours, and that's fact. You know, that I don't know whether they get paid per personal statement they read, but you know, they're probably not reading them. You've got to stand out, and I would say within that personal statement as well, it's not going, I've done this, I've done that, this is what I've done, this is what I've done, this shows this shows that. You've got to list, you've got to show that you're not just saying, I'm caring, I'm compassionate, I've got resilience, I've got this, I've got that. You've got to show that you are without saying it. So saying something like, I've worked in customer service for X amount of time. I've dealt with different people of different ages. I've had to communicate certain price changes to someone who was 16 years old, and then having to explain something to a 70-odd-year-old who with hearing difficulties. That shows that you're able to adapt your communication styles, and it shows that you're aware that you need to do that as well, and it shows that you've got interpersonal skills. So, you know, something as simple as that, you need to be able to show that you can do things, not just tell them that you can do them. It's all very well saying, you know, I can fly, but if you don't have wings and you can't actually fly, then you can't fly, can you? You've got to be able to show that you can. A few other things.
I jump in there while you're thinking. Your personal statement did not just start with, I had an England netball cap either. There was a relationship between that statement.
Oh, yes.
And so it anchored in what you wanted to do, didn't it? You used it as an example, like you just said about the customer service thing, of something you knew they would be looking for. You didn't start by going, hey, I just happen to be in England.
No. I think to be fair, now I think back, I think my opening line was, it was, what was it? As I was listening to the national anthem play, as I received my England cap, that I realised all the determination and hard work had paid off. Something along those lines. And then I went into how I, you know, liked helping people, how I liked working with people, how I'd been in a team, what work experience I'd done, that sort of thing. And you've got to make it flow as well, because if it doesn't flow and if it's all choppy and all over the place, they won't read it as well. yeah, it's a bit of a picky job, like, yeah.
I think these are really good tips, though. All of them are really, really useful tips. When we help students to write personal statements, this is what we say: never start your personal statement like this.
Yeah.
And yet we see them every year.
Yeah.
The word always is overused in personal statement, and it's almost always not true.
Yeah.
But always, I think a piece of advice from me would be read your personal statement, and if you find the word always in there, interrogate the use of it, because there's very rarely an occasion where that's appropriate. It's just a bit easy to put down, perhaps not quite.
I think another thing is, at the time, I was, because if you kind of tell, I'm a little bit alternative, and I've got tattoos, I've got piercings, I've got bloody dreadlocks, I've got stretched ears. It's not your average plain Jane. But I think at the time I was a bit worried as to whether they would accept us, because I wasn't as alternative at the time, and I was wondering, whether they would accept me being me, and whether I would be allowed to sort of express myself the way I am. And I think quite a lot of people at college and thinking about going to uni, they want to express themselves, and I think I was worried about it at the time, so I thought I'd just mention it in case anyone else is, because don't be worried about the way you look, or the way you dress, or if you've got tattoos, if you've got piercings, because in my job, it doesn't matter. Unless you've got a tattoo that is, a symbolism of white supremacy, I don't think, you're going to have a problem. You need to just accept yourself, and they're going to accept you, because, at the end of the day, it's not the type of job to be picky on what you look like. I never really find that people ever have a problem with the way I look, and in some jobs I think you might, and that's just the way life is. It's the way life's been for ages, but for being a paramedic, I find it's very, very inclusive and very welcoming to people who may not look not normal, but people who may not look like your average Joe, and that's definitely me. and I feel included. There's not a day that goes by where I think I can't, express myself the way I want, and look the way I want. Obviously, as long as you're smart and you're a nice person, and you know what you're doing, and you're motivated, and you work hard, I think this is definitely a job that includes everyone, and it doesn't really matter what you look like.
That's really nice to hear, actually.
Yeah. Honestly, there's loads of people with tattoos in the service. You find quite a lot of ambulance personnel are covered in tattoos. Loads of piercings. I think I'm the only one in North East Ambulance Service with dreads, though, but that's a new one. But yeah, honestly, the diversity is incredible. So don't ever feel put off by going for a role within the NHS, or within for paramedics, for instance, just because the way you look, because honestly they don't care. You can look however you want, and as long as you look professional, and as long as you're a nice person and you do the job well, that sort of stuff doesn't matter.
Okay.
I've got a quick question while Anya hopefully gets any questions that anybody.
We just have only one, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Really quickly, you mentioned casualty right at the beginning. Really quickly, and then we can get onto that other question. What are your thoughts on people watching air ambulance television programs and casualty? Are they realistic, and are they good to watch because it's a perspective and a point of view?
Casualty, Holby City, that sort of rubbish, don't watch it. Terrible. It's not good. If you are watching ambulance, that's a decent one. I tend to quite enjoy watching ambulance. Quite like to correct people on what they do. Helicopter ER, that's a good one because I know people that's on it, so I know it's decent. The Inside the Ambulance one, I'm not really a fan of that just because the soundtrack is absolutely horrendous, but that's okay to watch as well because that's following a real crew around. Don't get your expectations up on, you know, on what these things are, because the shows themselves, even though they might be factually correct and that they are following crews around, that they're not showing you an average day. That they're not showing you you know, that they're showing you all the juicy bits really, and they're not showing you what the rest of the day sort of is. So I wouldn't really get your hopes up on that sort of lifestyle, but if if you want a little bit of background, you want to see how it works, and yeah, go for it. Just don't watch Casualty or Holby City because it's just absolutely terrible. Yeah.
Okay, some good. Question here from one of our listeners who attended the webinar. I'm thinking of going to child nursing, occupation therapy, or trauma route, but I don't take any sciences. Will this be a disadvantage? And there's also, addition to this question, I study psychology. Which course would be better, child nursing or occupational therapist? So in terms of sciences, any tips there?
Right, okay. So child nursing. You know, at the end of the day, sciences like, you know, biology, they are not the be all and end all, because you can do things like health and social care. And obviously she said she's doing psychology. I'm not entirely sure, if I'm being honest with you. Preferably if you're going into child nursing, then you can so you may not be able to do them, you know, if you've already picked your options and things, you might not be able to change that or whatever. But if you are thinking about going into child nursing, you can do things such as what are they called? So let's think about this. So it's basically before you go to uni, you then do a year before you go to uni, which is basically a top up. So anything that you haven't done, and you tend to find that not older, but you know, people who have had kids, they've got a family now, they want to go back to uni, they'll tend to do a supplement year on top of uni beforehand to then sort of get yourself back up to where you should be. And that's not saying that this person who's asked the question is behind. It's just meaning that if they are wanting to do child nurse and they are wanting to get into that, then the sort of the access, hang on, let's see, is it an access year? Something like that. They can then do that year, build up what they need to learn. So if that's doing, you know, biology, or if that's doing health and social care, you can do that for a year and sort of boost yourself in that way. So that's always an option for you. If you find that the courses, the topics that you've chosen don't actually allow you to do those courses at uni.
I think I'd agree with Alan. In general, sciences are an expectation, but there are other ways of cleverly going about it. Health and social care is often accepted, or there are a number of courses, and it depends where you are in the country, but there's a good one in Rotherham, which is a good example, and it's a foundation course, but it's a pre-healthcare. So there is some practical elements to it, and I think this is slightly answering Reese's question, which I've just seen pop up. Look for a course that's got practical elements to it, and then you're gaining the practical skills that Ellen just talked about, you know, for an hour, rather than being sat in a classroom learning about healthcare. Or not healthcare, that's an unfair word, health and well-being. The one at Rotherham has got practical elements within it, and there are others around the country, and then you can feed into your more practical course without necessarily having that A-level or that high grade in science. It's tricky. They're traditional, and they've got to have some entry requirements. So whilst, you know, we might know that biology is not the be all and end all, unfortunately, a lot of them require a science of some description as a straightforward entry requirement. But it's about being a bit inventive and a bit creative, and not allowing it to put up a wall that you can't work around or over. There are other ways.
Yeah, definitely. That one from Reese. I think I've nearly finished my 2-year BTEC applied science. Got rejected from all the other offers.
Yeah, I think Reese is just the shadowing what Nicola said. So he's just going to do an alternative route of health and well-being course, which is a level 4 course, which could be like an entry route.
It's difficult to advise Reese on that, because you don't know what your reasons for rejections are unless you've got some feedback on that. And it could be as straightforward as it's not your qualifications, it's actually something that's missing in your personal statement. And the three of us here today have got fairly recent experience of helping a friend who got themselves into that issue. So there's the element of your application and whether it ticked the boxes that they want. But a course that takes you up a level, look for the content in that course. And that brings us right back to what Ellen said about the content, the structure, the way it's delivered. That health and wellbeing course, make sure it's going to take you where you want to go next. They will give you career prospects and what you can do next with it. Make sure it's something that you want to do in the end. Otherwise, I'd probably use clearing to find something more appropriate, rather than taking a course just because it's been suggested to you if your gut tells you it doesn't take you where you want to go.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, there's Megan saying she does physics and maths but not doing biology. Would that affect her application?
Possibly is the honest answer to that. Again, we're back to that same thing. Yeah. It's about these traditional requirements, but there are quite a number of paramedic courses across the country, a couple of foundation courses, and sometimes you've got to accept that it doesn't matter how good your grades are, it's about the subject. And it might be that you've got to take a step back to be able to then get the right route going again, or look for the ones that are a bit more flexible. It tends to be the newer ones. So Keele, a new on the block with paramedics, so they're likely to be a bit more flexible, a little bit more forward thinking, and they may be able to see something else in you. I think if you wanted to give it a go and risk it, then it's building up the things that Ellen said, first aid courses, doing anatomy and physiology courses, you know, get online and build up your biological knowledge in a different way if you want to give that a risk. There are ways of being clever nowadays that you couldn't do before.
Yeah, and the same Eve is talking about taking chemistry. Would that help? It's exactly the same answer, isn't it? And do check the entry requirements, because they might vary slightly. So and sometimes if you're not sure, just email universities, ask them and say, this is the combination of subject that I do. Would you consider me? And you know, you might get a straightforward answer with that as well.
Chemistry tends to be less important. In medicine, chemistry is the be-all and end-all, more so than biology for many universities. But actually in paramedics and nursing, not so much. So if you've not got it, but you've got biology, I think you're in a stronger position than somebody who's the opposite way around. Bridget, Ellen spoke about other routes at the beginning. From experience of helping a couple of students this year, they're not so many of them about at the moment, because you can imagine they're quite popular, and the ones that are out there tend to have age requirements upon them. So I don't know how old you are, but I certainly know I found one with the West Yorkshire Ambulance Service not too long ago, you were going to train and work your way through the rungs to get to where Ellen is, but you needed to be 21 to be able to apply. And I guess it's that if you're not going to do the academic route where they can support your training, you're going to need to have the life experience bit.
And I think just to add to that, I think you know, you're totally right with, you know, with not wanting to spend the time and money going through the paramedic course in order to figure out whether you want to do it or not. But even if you get a chance to work in a nursing home, and I know I hate going into nursing homes, But that's really good, because you tend to find a lot of paramedics are going into nursing homes. So dealing with people in nursing homes and actually seeing what the paramedics are doing in that case, that also gives you a little bit of work experience, even though you're not with the paramedics. If you're there and you'd be able to see what they're doing with that patient in the nursing home, then it gives you an idea as to whether you would actually want to do that or not. It's not it's not the best, not the most ideal situation, but it's something that you could do, and it'll give you experience at the same time. Definitely.
I think you're going to probably come across a lot of those challenging, stomach churning situations more likely in a care home than you are anywhere else, aren't you? So you're going to know whether or not you can deal with the mundane, not particularly pleasant that forms most of the job.
Oh yeah, definitely 100%.
Okay, well, that's great. I don't think we have any more questions, and thank you so much for all your insight. It's been really, really interesting.
No, it's not a problem. Thank you for having me. I hope the information's helped some people, and yeah.
Yeah, good luck with the application, everyone. We've got some thank yous there, and thank you everyone for coming and listening. So we hope that was useful. I will message everyone afterwards with the link to the recording so you can watch it again if that's helpful. Yeah, good luck with your applications.
Yeah, good luck everyone. I hope everything goes okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Ellen, and thank you for coming, everybody.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.